it really shows your flaws when it's time to scale your business. Like your flaws really are going to stick out like a sore thumb.
I love bookkeeping.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and catch a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday. Today, we're going to be continuing our scaling series, and we are going to talk about the steps you need to take when it's time to scale your business. Melissa, I mean, you have so much knowledge when it comes to this because you've obviously scaled your business and done it so efficiently. And I can't wait to pick your brain on this subject.
Well, thank you so much. I would say that's not at all what happened. I think that's what's happening this time, that we've set our next, 3 to 5 year scale plan. But the first time around, I definitely made tons of mistakes. So I feel like I'm here to really share all the things that I messed up in the process of scaling the business.
So I guess the first thing when I think about scaling a business, I guess the first step would be to realize that it's time to scale. And we talked about that in our previous episode. And really commit to scaling effectively. And I mean, we talked about scaling versus growth. So it's hard for me not to say the word grow, but how to, I guess, grow your team and make it more efficient for the amount of numbers that you're producing. But what was the first thing you think to kind of make a plan or make a roadmap to scaling? What was the first step you took when you were like, okay, I need to make a plan? What's the first step?
So for me, I always think about the math first and what is my goal that I want to reach? And then what do I need to do to get there? I think we talked about this in the last episode about working backwards and kind of figuring that out. Because if you're going to scale, you're going to need to scale your team. But you also have to figure out from a budget perspective what you can afford when you're scaling that team in order to take. So you really have to kind of figure out okay, how many clients or what revenue do I need to be at for this next hire to make sense all the way up to your goal so that you can map it out and not have to panic hire at the last minute. And then I think the big thing is also for us. So I think it was determining the numbers, what the numbers needed to be, but also how we were going to get those numbers. So from a marketing perspective, also kind of working backwards, if I need to close 20 sales a month and I have a, 25% close rate, then I need to have 80 free consultations a month. Now, those numbers sound terrifying. Just break those down, divide them by 10. If you want to close 2 sales per month, you should try to aim for 8 free consultations a month if you have a 25% close rate. And I always like to talk in conservative numbers. So, even though my close rate is usually above 50%, I don't always plan on 50%. You never know, because the bigger the numbers get, there's going to be, a drop in percentage naturally. So, and then if I need to get 8 free consultations a month, what does that look like in terms of marketing and strategy and content creation to get those people to schedule? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I also feel like when it's time to scale, it kind of puts on this pressure to you realize that, wow, my service and my product for whatever company you own, it really needs to be perfected.
Yes, yeah. So I guess I'm thinking about it's time to scale. You should not even consider scaling until you've worked out the service that you offer and you can maintain your quality while you're scaling. So, that's what we've been working on over the last 7 months. We had a pause. So we actually didn't take clients for about 4 months. Any client that I sold, we had an estimated start date of June. So I basically just told them, I'm not accepting new clients until the third quarter, the end of the second, beginning of the third quarter, if we can. We were able to onboard some as early as May, but it was really our team needed a break. We needed a break and we needed to regroup because some things, with scaling, it just, we all got a little burnt out and we needed to regroup and figure out exactly what we wanted to do. So we took that time, just like you said, to have a good plan in place for how we were going to continue to grow, not even scale at that point, just grow in general, just like the natural slow growth, how we were going to add anything without decreasing our quality. So that's what we were working on. And then, they definitely exceeded all expectations that I had in the past 7 months, so that we are in a position now where we could actually scale rapidly because of all of the work that we've put in the last, 6 or 7 months.
I feel like getting your processes down and kind of what you just said, regrouping, that's such a huge step to scaling, because it really shows your flaws when it's time to scale your business. Like, your flaws really are going to stick out like a sore thumb, because it's like, now everything has been highlighted. And I think that was like the smartest thing you could have done, was to regroup and to kind of figure things out and to stop taking clients. Did you, like, when it comes to scaling your business, I guess hiring is one of the biggest parts of scaling any business, really. How do you identify what role you need to hire for?
That's a great question. So I actually, this is actually part of what I provided with my BKX speech. I provided like a free Google sheet to help people like walk through the decision-making process of how to delegate, and then to determine what you need to hire for. And so a lot of times, it can be obvious, right? Like, once you've already done it, it can be like, oh yeah, whatever, we need an account manager. But like, especially in the beginning with new people, you have a lot of like random tasks. And technically, maybe you have 10 tasks that should be a bookkeeper's job. Maybe you have 10 tasks that should be like an executive assistant's job. And then you have, you need to get account management off of you. But you can't hire 3 people at that point, right? And so I feel like you just really need to do a task audit of what you need covered, and you need to figure out how you're going to delegate it. If it's all going to go to one person, maybe it isn't just one position. Maybe it's kind of like a hodgepodge position. Like, I've had those before where it's like, hey, I have a bunch of random stuff I need done. Do you mind doing all of the random things? But where I'm at now, it's pretty easy to kind of determine what we need in the next step to growth, just because we've had an organization chart the entire time with like a projection of what it would need to be as it grew. So, doing an audit of what your company looks like now, but versus like what it needs to look like when you get to a different level, and then kind of prioritize the next steps to get there. So like right now, my biggest task is by the end of the year to hire and train a salesperson and work myself entirely out of sales in the company. And so that is, that was determined just primarily because I am like the worst person to do it now. I like hold everybody up. I'm, know that I could find somebody better for the role, just because I am spread thin at this point. I need somebody that can be like 100% dedicated to sales, that's like on their game. And that was like, I found that by internal reflection, that I was like, man, I suck at this. Like, if I were my boss, I would, yeah. And I guess I am. So I'm like firing myself, because I'm at the point now where I know that this could be done better. Whereas I've never had that before. I always knew that I was the best person to be in sales in our company. And now, 6-7 years in, I'm like, no, yep, I'm done. Maybe not. I don't want to hustle. I don't want to grind.
Yeah.
Don't call me after 5, man.
I'm tired.
I'm tired.
That's so great that you can kind of identify where you need to be and then work backwards and see and fill in the blanks of what your company needs. When it's time to scale, and there's so many different ways to scale your business, but how do you get help or guidance with that? Like, do you ever have a consultant come in, or do you have like a mentor that helps you with your business? And kind of how have you utilized having a third party come in with an unbiased opinion to help you scale your business? Because I think that is a huge step.
I think that it's great. I've heard a lot of people, like, especially in like the bookkeeper elite space, that say like they don't think business coaches are necessary, like at our level. And I just vehemently disagree with that. I think that maybe that they just haven't found a good business coach then. So I absolutely love it. I love having somebody that is actually not in the accounting industry as a coach. Because I feel like a lot of the things that we deal with, that I struggle with, are universal, regardless of like the industry that you're in, like managing people, communicating with clients, those types of things. Like it doesn't change when you do bookkeeping, right? And then I do have a mentor, and that she actually just decided to start working with us in a subcontractor capacity to help us with kind of like some process overview. She's going to be doing some like mentorship and training with our account management team and a few other things. And then in the past, I also have worked with I knew I needed a director of bookkeeping. And so I reached out to somebody that had their own business. Like we kind of connected and he ended up coming on board. And now, he was director of bookkeeping for about a year and then transitioned into a different role. So I think to kind of answer your question is I think that I'm like very fluid with collaborations. I'm like always open to people coming in from the outside, whether it's going to be short term or long term. And I think that's just like a conversation you need to have. Like I have a conversation today actually scheduled with another bookkeeping business owner to see if we can collaborate on, one of our brands that we have, because I think she would be a great person to work with. And so I think it's just having those conversations. It's really big, I think, to network with people because you never know when maybe what they want will change or what you want will change. And then you have this group of people that are like-minded, that are positive, that are, business focused, and you can really just call on them for help.
I think having a third party come in with an unbiased opinion is like one of the most important things you can do because it's kind of scary. Not everybody wants to hear about what they're doing wrong. And
dude, no, tell me everything I'm doing wrong.
Yeah. Like that is so like anybody listening, like if you don't like criticism very well, if you don't take criticism very well, all I got to say is learn how to take it because having a third party come in, especially somebody who truly wants to help you and really has your best interest at heart to tell you what you're doing wrong so that you can be better, especially when it comes to growing your business, that is something so, so, so important. And it's like, it really does need to be utilized in every business, I feel like.
I agree with you. And I know that some people might not find that attainable. Maybe they don't know who could come in or they don't want to spend the money. And so I would urge all of the new bookkeeping business owners, like whenever you guys bring on new bookkeepers, like new subcontractors, always have them tear your business apart, man. Like make it an open environment where they can provide feedback to you because if your brand new subcontractors are struggling, that's not necessarily a reflection of them. That could be a reflection of your processes. And you're not going to know that unless you ask them. And so we always do that every time we hire people. And that's why our hiring and onboarding process has gotten so great is because we messed it up so many times. And I had subcontractors that were kind enough to tell me like, hey, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. Can we not? And then I was like, yeah, ooh. And I actually had one come in and she helped with revamping the process. So, if you can't have like a business coach come in, man, I'll tell you right now that the most helpful thing you can get is feedback from the people you're working in that are on your team as well.
Yeah.
The newbies, really.
Yeah. Ask your team for feedback if you do have a team.
Today's show is brought to you by Keeper, the one app to run your bookkeeping business. Keeper helps you get faster client responses with your own custom branded QuickBooks integrated client portal. Finally, you can say goodbye to those pesky spreadsheets full of uncategorized transactions. Keeper also helps you catch those embarrassing coding errors before your clients do. And with Keeper, you can generate beautiful custom reports that your clients will absolutely love to read. To find out more, go to keeper.app. That's keeper.app. Mention I Love Bookkeeping to get 20% off your first 3 months. Again, go to keeper.app to find out more. Thank you for listening.
I think the traits of, and not to get off too much on a tangent, but I think a trait of running an efficient company and having positive growth is being able to change and being able to realize what you're doing wrong. But I think a next step in scaling your business, and something that is so important, is to really take a deep dive and look at your processes. And I know, Melissa, that you kind of a few minutes ago just talked about how your team kind of regrouped before you took on new clients. How much of your processes did you look into and say, okay, that's wrong, I messed that up, like that needs to be completely changed, or that needs some tweaking? How much of that did you do?
So we looked at every single process. We modified our bookkeeping process because we had made some system changes, like we no longer use Asana. We completely revamped our QC process thanks to Carrie on my QC team, who is just like a QC wizard. And we also implemented a deep QC process, which is like kind of like an annual, like pre-tax ready clean, just to verify. And then right now, so we just revamped our complete onboarding process. I am finishing our sales process right now with like kind of the creation of my sales course. I've been like kind of double timing it. And then not last but not least, actually second to last, the tax department has been working all year on modifying their processes as they've kind of learned, because this was like the first year with Kazan as the director and Rachel as the assistant director. So they went through a whole tax year, and now they're kind of finalizing things going into next tax year. And then last but not least, right now, and that's where Jan came in to help out, is our account management process. So like literally every process in our company, back end, front end, client facing, not client facing, has been modified in some way over the past 6 months. It's been some work, man.
Wow. That's crazy. Like that's a lot of work. But I think creating processes and taking a deep dive into your processes and changing what doesn't work, it can be a bitch, but in the long run, it's so important to do. Like, in getting all the help you can get with someone who is experienced with processes, I think that can really come in, depending on your budget. I think that can really come in and help you scale your business effectively.
I'm actually like, I don't like services where they come in and they like review your processes and then like write them for you. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's the dirty, annoying, hard work that you need to do yourself. I think that you can use resources like, Alyssa and her workflow queen, like they have kind of like done for you processes that make it easy so that you can like modify and change them. But like, if somebody's coming into your business and they have to like watch you do what you do, or like they've never done, maybe they've never done advisory work. Like, it's just so inefficient to me. I think it's just like, there's so many better ways, like record Loom videos, like transcribe them through Otter AI, like have somebody on your team do it, get some done for you processes from other people and modify them slightly. Like, I think it's something that honestly you have to do. You or your team have to do it. I don't think it makes sense for a third party to come in. And then, like I said, I even said this at BKX. Don't have the audacity to think that your process is special, man. Like, we're all doing the same shit. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're all doing bookkeeping. We're all doing tax planning, tax preparation. I can guarantee that my processes are nothing magical or secret, or there's no secret sauce in it. It's just like, do the work. So if you can just buy the done for you process, then maybe you just change your process to be that. Because I just can almost guarantee that people who have made it their jobs to create the processes are going to be more efficient at those processes. And maybe you should just adopt a slightly different process. But I think it's a waste of time to have a consultant come in and like see how you're currently doing things, write it down, make change. Like, I don't like that personally.
So I know you have a business coach. Do you feel like so you don't want a consultant to come in, but do you ever feel like you're lost when it comes to processes, or maybe if somebody does feel lost when it comes to processes, what would you recommend for them to do if they need a fresh set of eyes to look at the way they run things?
So I have not, personally, but there's a lot of people on my team that they just thrive on those types of things, right? My business coach is primarily like a communication consultant, which is what I struggle with. So I feel like that's kind of where our focus is. And we've talked about how to communicate new processes in an appropriate way so that people, are receptive to change. For people that I think feel lost, I think it really just ends up, you just need to do the work of creating a task audit of what you do now. So like write it all down and figure out what you're doing now. And you have to get that all out and then go back through it and see where you can create efficiencies. Alyssa Lang has like so many great free resources on how to do things like this too. Like, using free resources to just figure out how to do it on your own. And then, like I said, buying some done for you processes and then like merging them together. Because I've done that. Brooke Swan sells a 1099 process. And it's so funny because not last year, I think the year before, I bought her process and it was very similar to my own. And I think it was like $99. And I was like, whatever, like, this was before I knew Brooke really, like I never really talked to her very much. And I was like, $99, like I can, throw this out there, whatever. I just want to see what other people are doing. And there wasn't a lot of crazy difference, right? Between what we did. Like, cause again, we all do the same shit, guys. Like we're all doing 1099s. Like it's gonna be some version of that, right? But there was literally, I think like 2 steps that I had never thought of before. I can't even think of what they are right now. I thought it was genius. And I told Brooke, I was like, you should charge more for this process just because of that. And it was great. And so I just took her 2 steps that I bought from her and I implemented this into our process and it made ours more efficient.
That's really cool that you did that. Because you were able to do it yourself.
And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't anything that we hadn't already done or we couldn't figure out on our own, but I was able to do it faster by somebody that knew how to do it, that was an expert. Whereas like if I brought a consultant in that maybe didn't quite understand and like they were trying to create a 1099 process from scratch, that just doesn't make sense to me. It's just an inefficient waste of time. Especially in the bookkeeper launch community, there's so many people that have already done it. So like supporting their business and supporting, by honestly not asking for things for free. Like I didn't reach out to Brooke, be like, hey, can I just see your time? No, I paid her the $99 or whatever it was for her 1099 process. And I think that's the way it should be, is that we should support each other. I'll help you get ahead in your business faster. But then you should also, pay for that intellectual property that's going to zoom you ahead. Because it would have taken me a lot longer to figure that out, what Brooke had already figured out.
That's awesome. Especially because this community is so inclusive and I feel like nobody gatekeeps any hacks or processes. There's so much help out there for bookkeepers, especially in the bookkeepers.com community, if I do say so myself. So what are some ways that you figure out what's working and what's not working for your team? Like, how do you basically run analytics to figure out how things are working or how they're not working?
That's a great question. So there's a variety of things right? So we have client satisfaction surveys because you want to know if what we're doing is working for the clients, right? We also have internal satisfaction surveys as well as frequent check-ins with people. Each of our departments have key performance metrics. Like we use the traction system. I asked Daniel to implement that. I think we implemented it September of last year. I had it on my to-do list. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I had it on my to-do list for 6 months and I just could not get it implemented. I had so much going on the sales side of things. So I asked Daniel to come back to the business in September of last year. And I was like, go ahead and implement this. Everyone hated it at first. It was great. But I was like, it's getting done. And now everyone loves it. Okay. And I knew it. I was like, you guys are going to hate this for 3 months and then you're going to love this. And it's true. They love it now. But every team has key performance metrics that correlate to what our goals are. so that we know if things are or aren't working. I'm not going to go through all of them, but basically, coming up with obviously what does working mean for you, right? Like what is success, defining success, and then coming up with how you're going to measure what that success, if you're going to make that success or not. So for us, we're constantly, we do weekly check-ins on the metrics to see if we're meeting our goals to make our big goals.
That's awesome. I think that's another great thing to do, even if you're not scaling, is just to kind of have an internal check-in on how you're doing and what's working, what's not working, what's efficient, what's not efficient. And I think in turn, you can kind of identify your new strengths that you found with scaling and figure out how to grow them even more. Like, what are some of the strengths that you found when you were scaling your business? Like, now that we've been able to successfully grow, what are some things that we can do now versus like, maybe I couldn't do this before. Now that I've scaled, we're really good at this.
I don't know. Maybe I really don't know.
But it happens, right?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm sure it happens, but I feel like I've seen the opposite a lot. Like by scaling, I find a lot of our weaknesses, but I'm a naturally negative person. So that's where like I am not like Daniel and I both, like we have to set reminders to provide positive feedback and positive reinforcement to the team. And it's not because we don't love them and because we're not thinking positive things. We just both forget to communicate that to others. So like naturally, I look for like negatives. I just happen to notice them. They're just like more obvious to me. And I have to really meditate to see like the positive in things or like strengths. Like I'm always tearing myself apart. So I feel like every time we scale, I'm like, oh, found another thing we suck at. And I have to like really, really dig down and be like, oh yeah, but like, because I just like assume, not necessarily assume, but like I'm like, well, don't you all understand how amazing you are? Like, I don't need to tell you that, right? But that's like, I guess that's my weakness in a sense.
That's interesting that you say that, because I feel like you are so good at that. You are so good at like letting people know that what they're doing right or what they're doing wrong.
Oh, dude, yeah, that is consistency. That's not a natural talent.
Yeah.
That is getting into a habit and holding yourself accountable to just do it because you know. And I think that's the thing is that you can have these things that are actually weaknesses that other people perceive as strengths because you work on yourself. And that's the thing is several years ago, I took a hard look in the mirror and was like, okay, I want to be a better person. Like I think about all those things you ever wanted to do. Like, oh, I want to learn how to speak Spanish. I want to, learn how to play piano or whatever it is that you've always thought like, I want to be able to do this, but I've never been able to do it. Like y'all just start doing it. And that's what I did is I wrote down a list of all the things that I wanted to be and I wanted to do. And I've just done it. And I just work through it. And I'm going to be that person so that I can look and be like, oh, 10 years from now, I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish. And now I speak Spanish because it's never too late.
That's so great. So I guess my final question to this episode is, how do you continue to evolve your business and how do you continuously monitor your success, your processes, your changes? Like how often do you guys have check-ins? And how do you continue to evolve?
So that's like a loaded question. Man.
I know. I'm hitting you with the hard stuff today.
You are. I gave up caffeine too, and she's really getting me. That's what I told you guys, I was like, I'm going to give up caffeine. And I did. It's been a long, 6-month process or so. I started reducing my caffeine. Like y'all, I used to be insane. Like I would drink basically a pot of coffee by myself before noon and then continue to just coast on other caffeinated beverages after that. It was insane. So I'm finally off the caffeine. My brain is mush. It's almost back to normal. Maybe one day it will be. Anyway, to answer your questions. We have a weekly integrator meeting with our operations team, like with our management team. And then we have weekly individual team meetings, like the client success team, account management team, tax team, bookkeeping team. Then we have a monthly company team meeting. And every one of those meetings is on like the traction model. So, we're identifying, topics that need to be discussed. We're either resolving them, identifying how they need to be solved, assigning them to be solved. If they can't be solved, escalating them to a different department or up the chain to the operations team. And so it's just really like very fluid. Like we're like kind of like it looks like kind of like a web when you look at it, like, it just like flows back and forth, but it's just very transparent. And then when it comes to like evolving the business, I think it's really just kind of seeing what works for the team, what works for the clients, and getting a lot of feedback and figuring out how to make it better. We also, like for instance, right now, so right after BKX, my husband and I took a vacation to Antigua. So we're still in Antigua right now without kids. It's been crazy. This is the longest I've ever been away from my kids. It was a total of 20 days. And I think, I think next time I told him, I was like, the first 2 weeks were good. And now I just like want my kids back. It's like a mom thing. So anyway, like literally the first couple days that we were here, like we actually were able to talk to each other without screaming children. And we slept in. We had breakfast made for us here. It was fantastic. And we literally solved like all of the things that we needed to do in our business. We just completely revamped all of our packages. And I don't know what took us so long to come up with that. So I guess I would say in order to evolve your business, you almost need to stop. Like you need a break. I think it's very like a la Ben Day and his, brain dump. Almost every time I try to not work on the business, that's when I have the like creativity to figure out the solutions to my problems.
That's so great. And that's such good advice to kind of take a step back and hit the reset button. That's the advice that like I need to hear because I'm so bad about that and like mentally checking out and being able to gather your thoughts. But that's awesome, especially the weekly team meetings. That's so great that you're able to keep up with your team that way. And even working virtually, I know it's hard for a lot of our listeners who think it's hard to have a good company culture or create like a good rapport with your team. Like it is possible. Take it from Melissa. You can definitely maintain a growing, thriving business while still working virtually and not seeing your team face to face ever or rarely. And I guess that's such a double-edged sword when it comes to this industry is a lot of people now are working virtually, which creates a lot of freedom. But I guess the pain point of that is not having the company culture or not feeling like it's harder to maintain your processes because you're not seeing people face to face. And it's definitely, if you're out there and you're struggling with that, it is definitely doable to scale your business while still being virtual. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We are loving talking about scaling your business. Especially, I love picking Melissa's brain and making her think when she is off of caffeine. Next episode, we are going to be talking about hiring and firing. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. You don't want to miss an episode out every Tuesday and Thursday. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that business.